Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. An interesting update in the career of Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, former WBO super middleweight champion. It appears he's going to be moving up in weight yet again from light heavyweight up to cruiserweight for Poland's own Michal Cieslak for what is a WBC cruiserweight title eliminator. The WBC cruiserweight champion being Badu Jack. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez looks to be moving up to cruiserweight. The former world champion could fight in a WBC title eliminator. Zurdo versus Poland's Michal Cieslak is in play for August 19th in LA. No Smoke Boxing has learned that a move up to cruiserweight is the likely next step for the former WBO super middleweight champion. The Mexican could take part in a bout with Poland's former world title challenger
Cieslak in what would be a WBC title eliminator for the champion Badu Jack, who does have a mandatory challenger in play.
Mandatory challenger that goes by the name Noel Gevor. If you've been following the cruiserweight division the last couple of years, you will be familiar with that name. You will be familiar with Noel Gevor.
Gave then champion Benavidez of Latvia a run for his money 5 years ago in 2018.
Fast forward 5 years, he's now the mandatory challenger to Badu Jack. Badu Jack, who is also plotting a course north of where he campaigns now. He's set to fight Lukas Rozansky in Saudi Arabia for what is Lukas Rozansky's WBC bridgerweight title.
So Zurdo's moving up to cruiserweight and Jack is moving up to bridgerweight.
Tough breaks down. This potential fight for Zurdo is not agreed upon yet, but it's in play and it's likely to happen next. Zurdo lost a wide points decision to Dmitry Bivol for the WBA light heavyweight title in his last fight
late last year in November of 2022, and then was on track to miss the 175-pound limit by almost 7 pounds in a canceled rebound fight with Gabriel Rosario this past March.
It's my understanding that Zurdo Ramirez was going through some things outside of the ring, some things with the then missus, his then wife. Needless to say, that stuff might have been affecting him.
It did.
So he's still on the bounce, and he might end up opposite the ring Cieslak, who lost a convincing decision to former champion Lawrence Okolie for what was the WBO cruiserweight title in London last February. The Polishman has since won 3 fights in a row, all inside the distance, including a 4th-round stoppage over Dillian Brigion to win the European title in April. The 34-year-old brought a large crowd to the O2 Arena for his bout with Okolie, more supporters than the hometown champion. LA has a strong Polish population, and Cieslak will once again look to bring significant support.
Polish fighters
and Polish fight fans have been making their presence felt as of late, and that is not to be ignored. They have their contribution to make to the sport. Zurdo Ramirez. For Zurdo,
it's another crack at the apple, another chance to become a 2-division champion at what would be his 3rd weight.
His light heavyweight campaign didn't work out as he desired. Perhaps he will have more luck as a cruiserweight, but there is a trade-off. There is a caveat. Beating Michal Cieslak doesn't necessarily make him Badu Jack's mandatory challenger. There still would be Noel Gevor to contend with, a notoriously stubborn customer with a lot of experience at this weight, having only ever lost 2 times to 2 of the division's better fighters, Benavidez and Krzysztof Glowacki.
Here's what I see.
I get the sense that Badu Jack may be done campaigning as a cruiserweight, now moving up to bridgerweight to challenge Poland's own Lukas Rozansky for his version of a WBC title. I don't get the sense that Badu Jack is coming back.
He might not, especially not if he wins.
To do what? To satisfy Noel Gevor as his mandatory challenger? That's a high-risk, low-reward fight for Badu Jack. Badu Jack, who's what, 40 now? He's not getting any younger. For Badu Jack, that would be more trouble than it's worth. So he may end up vacating the WBC title, the cruiserweight title, win, lose, or fall at bridgerweight.
Which point the newly vacated title could be contested between the winner of Ramirez versus Cieslak and Noel Gevor.
For the World Boxing Council, there's no money in Noel Gevor being that division's WBC champion, cruiserweight champion. For the World Boxing Council, I think they'd much prefer the green belt be put in the hands of a Mexican fighter of Mexican descent who has more drawing power at least than Noel Gevor.
He's a solid fighter, but nobody knows the man.
And he doesn't seem to have a major promoter behind him like Zurdo Ramirez, who can guarantee that he'll fight on a regular basis, on a regular schedule.
Noel Gevor doesn't have that. Zurdo does.
Zurdo's still with Golden Boy Promotions, and Golden Boy, they could sorely use a champion in their stable.
Interesting tidbits about Zurdo now campaigning as a cruiserweight. You know, Zurdo was always very big for super middleweight.
And even at light heavyweight, he was a big guy, still a very big guy. So he's got the size of a cruiserweight, the frame of a cruiserweight, but will he have cruiserweight power? Zurdo was never that big a puncher, you know. He could punch. He wasn't feather-fisted, but it was a cumulative damage.
If he stopped the guy.
Zurdo's a volume puncher. He throws punches in bunches, but he's not a one-hitter-quitter guy. He never was. Not at super middle and not at light heavy. How's he gonna fare at cruiser?
What's his durability gonna be like as well?
Questions about his power as a cruiserweight, but what about the ability to take power shots from cruiserweights?
This is gonna be interesting. The Polish guy he's fighting, he's no slouch. I remember that guy.
Gave Lawrence some problems. Lawrence couldn't stop him, and Lawrence is a big guy. He was a big guy for cruiserweight.
Lawrence couldn't stop him. Can Zurdo?
Bit of Mexican spice added to the cruiserweight scene. That could make things interesting.
Talk more about this fight once it's made official.
Upstairs at heavyweight, ahead of his world title opportunity with Alexander Usyk, Daniel Dubois says, I've got to outmaneuver Usyk in everything. Unleash hell on this guy.
Well, you guys know how it works. In spite of what people might say, Daniel Dubois has to back himself and believe in himself when nobody else will.
He feels he's fully fit and prepared for the challenge. 100%. I'm ready. We're ready to rumble. This is it. We're going to bring them titles back home. They're coming with me. It's my time. It is definitely my time. Usyk's been a great champion, and as I said before, everything with a beginning has to have an end. His zero has got to go, Dubois said to Sky Sports. I've got to outmaneuver him in everything. I'm younger, stronger, and I've got to release it all. Unleash hell on this guy. I was born for it. You know who else was younger?
Oh.
You know who else was stronger?
Oh.
Anthony Joshua. He was a younger guy than Alexander Usyk, a bigger guy than Alexander Usyk, with a better amateur pedigree and more professional accolades than Daniel Dubois has here and now, because this is the heavyweight division. And because at heavyweight, you're always one punch away from being knocked out, Daniel has a puncher's chance. That much you can give him.
But that's all you can give him. Dubois is a tremendous underdog in the contest.
The bookies can say whatever they want. It's no pressure for me. I'm going to be 100% ready on him to take them belts, Dubois said. I feel as though it's my time. I'm ready, confident, and positive about what I'm going to do to him. There's always pressure, but honestly, I'm built for it. I can handle it. I'm a contender, and I'm ready to do what I've got to do. It's been written, and I'm here to deliver. Preparation is good. I'm in shape, and I'm ready to go. Let's get it on.
You know he's not with Shane McGuigan anymore?
In case you didn't realize, in case you missed it, Daniel Dubois has parted ways with Shane McGuigan, who has been his trainer for some fights now. I believe that Daniel is with Don Charles now.
He used to train Derek Chisora.
It's not encouraging. It's not encouraging that this will be his first fight with Don Charles. Not because Don Charles isn't a good trainer, not because he doesn't have experience, but because this is the first time they're getting out together as a team in what in many ways is the biggest fight of Daniel's career against a very tricky, very difficult opponent who's no stranger to dealing with naturally bigger men than he is. He dealt with Derek Chisora, he dealt with Anthony Joshua 2 times, and Anthony Joshua, in my eyes, is 10 times the fighter, 10 times the boxer that Daniel Dubois is. He talks about outmaneuvering Alexander Usyk, but how exactly does he mean to do that?
Over the years, I've heard all the lazy takes, the lazy assessments about Anthony, how he's robotic, he's not fluid enough.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you think that Anthony Joshua isn't fluid, if you think he's robotic, that applies to Daniel Dubois tenfold. He doesn't have Anthony's jab. He doesn't have as strong a backhand as Anthony, and he doesn't have Anthony's variety.
I mean, he's not as put together a fighter as Anthony, not experienced at as high a level as Anthony, so the idea that he's going to go in there with a brand new trainer and outmaneuver Usyk,
Just don't see it. This is the guy that couldn't keep his head off center, couldn't keep his head out of the way of Joe Joyce's jab, no matter how much he landed, no matter how much he threw it. So much so that he got a busted eye. I think it was a fractured orbital.
Joe's a much slower guy than Alexander Usyk. I could see Alexander Usyk landing lead left hands, lead backhands from out of the southpaw stance. That's Usyk's signature. He hit Anthony Joshua with that punch quite a few times in their first fight.
Anthony did a lot better in the second, better still.
Hard to imagine that Daniel Dubois is going to stay out of the way of that punch.
Hard to conjure that he can outmaneuver Usyk.
Barely survived Kevin Lorena, a cruiserweight who moved up in weight just like Usyk, a southpaw like Usyk, but not cut from Usyk's cloth. And Daniel Dubois barely survived him.
That Kevin Lorena, a nondescript fighter and a small guy, a smaller guy than Daniel Dubois, was able to drop him, 2 to 3 times, had him hurt bad, real bad.
It was alarming.
Alarming in the sense that I started to wonder if Daniel Dubois was damaged goods. That if a few fights ago in the Joe Joyce fight, did he suffer more damage than we realized? Is his punch resistance gone?
Looked like it was, and it's not like he's been keeping busy with live bodies since then, since the Joe Joyce loss.
Strange twist of fate that Joe Joyce gave Daniel Dubois his first professional loss, but it's Daniel Dubois that's getting the title shot. It's Daniel Dubois that's in world title contention, and it's Smokin' Joe that's on the rebound.
Funny old game, this boxing.
Oh, Frank Warren and Dev Sani, the people at Queensbury, they would love it if Daniel Dubois were to pull a rabbit out of a hat and perform this miracle, beat Usyk in Poland, but I just don't see it. You know, they're holding out hope that Daniel Dubois can bring those belts back to Queensbury so that they can do a fight between him and Tyson Fury in-house, a fight that Tyson Fury would be heavily favored to win, a fight I'm sure
Dispel Alexander Usyk's mystique and take those belts from him. That would give Frank Warren full control of the heavyweight division. All the belts.
he'd love it. But I just can't conjure Daniel Dubois outmaneuvering Usyk, beating Usyk, because these are the circumstances. Daniel's coming off an injury.
Right.
He's breaking in a new trainer.
Yeah.
You saw how he looked in his last fight.
Horrible.
Massive underdog going in, and I'm supposed to believe he beats Usyk. I don't think so.
Entretenimiento, creo yo. Creo yo que sí me pasé y lo acepto. Lo acepto, no soy hombre y acepto que yo no soy así. Tal vez en ese momento me enojé o me molesté, ni me acuerdo de qué. Si ahorita me preguntas, no te puedo decir ni qué, porque no lo tomo en serio, ¿no? Entonces la gente quiere entretenimiento, traté de darle eso. Hice algo para experimentar, algo que yo no hacía, porque yo sigo aprendiendo. Soy humano y la cago. Y mis disculpas si la cago o ofendí a alguien, ¿no? A mí no me da vergüenza pedir disculpas si ofendí a alguien, ¿sí me entiendes? Hay que aceptar que Eric Reynoso es el mejor entrenador en mi mente en este momento. Ha hecho un trabajo espectacular con el Canelo. Y Canelo Álvarez también, libra por libra el mejor. Y para hacer algo, lo que ha hecho Canelo va a estar muy cabrón para que otro cabrón lo haga. Entonces me dejé llevar. Y mis disculpas. Y tal vez yo me dejé llevar para ver si de casualidad se hacía la pelea, si lo hacíamos enojar. Pero ese cabrón no se enojó, ¿sí me entiendes? Y él sigue con su negocio y felicidades y muy contento, ¿sí me entiendes?
That is the otherwise obnoxious Jose Benavidez Sr., who's performing a cleanup in aisle 6. The same Jose Benavidez Sr., who had a lot of not-so-nice things to say about Canelo Alvarez, is now basically groveling.
He is.
Saying that, you know, he doesn't know what was going through his mind. He was just attempting to be entertaining, to try and get a reaction out of Canelo, which he didn't get. That Canelo is an exceptional fighter to have done what he's done, and if it were easy, his success would be able to be duplicated. That Eddie Reynoso is a great manager and a great trainer.
Oh.
I mean, he's basically licking these guys' asses after claiming that they were avoiding his son, claiming they were avoiding his fighter. Why the change of heart?
Why is he groveling?
I don't think that Jose Benavidez, David Benavidez, or Samson Lukowicz realized that Canelo was on the verge of crossing over to their side of things, and now that he's there, Jose Benavidez is singing a different tune.
I don't think they knew he was going to do that. I certainly don't think Canelo's critics, the usual suspects, knew that he would be spending the foreseeable future on PBC Island, the way these guys were carrying on about how he's ducking Jamal, and he's ducking Jermell, and he's ducking David. Now that he's on the same side of the street as those fighters, you're hearing a lot of guys, not just Jose, change their tune.
They went from saying that he's avoiding Jamal and Jermell and he's avoiding slick fighters to making excuses as to why he shouldn't fight them, why he shouldn't fight Jermell.
Not that long ago, they were saying he was avoiding these guys. Now they're saying he's a weight bully for fighting them.
As it pertains to Jose Benavidez and David Benavidez, they were just dogs barking behind a fence. They've got a completely different attitude now that Canelo is within arm's reach.
What are you apologizing now for?
That shtick from before was just Team Benavidez trying to cultivate favor amongst the fans by pretending that Canelo Alvarez was afraid of them, that he was avoiding them. That narrative is a lot harder to propagate when he crosses over to your side of things.
Question now is, what are these clowns going to do? Is David Benavidez even going to have another fight this year, or is he going to sit out the rest of the year playing it safe, circumventing all the risks?
I mean, up until recently, we were under the impression, based on things his promoter said, based on things Samson Lukowicz told the media, that he would face David Morrell. David himself completely blew off that idea. So if he's not going to fight David Morrell, according to David Benavidez, who is he going to fight? Is he going to fight at all? Last year, he only fought once.
They're going to do that again?
Canelo on that side of things, it's not outside the realm of possibility that Team Benavidez might circumvent all the risks now that Canelo has a 3-fight deal with the PBC.
They don't want to roll the dice now.
They might not. A fight with David Morrell might have seemed logical at that time, before Canelo Alvarez ended up over there, but now you take on a David Morrell, that's a high-risk, low-reward fight. A fight that might jeopardize the Canelo fight. Maybe before, they didn't figure they would get it.
Get the Canelo fight.
So they may have been more receptive to other fights, perhaps then, but now their perspective has completely changed. They're hoping they can win the sweepstakes, and they want to play nice.
You know, if Canelo beats Jermell, and he doesn't end up fighting Jamal,
and if David sits out the rest of this year, since there's no new fight news in reference to him, it may be a year's time in between his last fight and his next one.
I mean, we haven't heard anything new about what he's going to do in the fall or the winter months.
At the sacrifice of his schedule and whatever momentum he hoped to amass after decisioning Caleb Plant, is he willing to sit out so he can play it safe and make it to an Alvarez fight in, say, May of next year?
Well, that entire team, Samson, David, his father, they're a bunch of charlatans, so I don't put it past them.
Get a look at this guy now. He's basically groveling. He's groveling to Team Alvarez.
It's pathetic.
Is that how you behave when you're managing the career of a Mexican monster like David Benavidez? Is that how monsters behave?
I'm telling you the whole time, these guys are a fucking joke.